All things safety in Cobb Schools is our topic this week on the Inside Scoop. Hello and welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm David Owen. Give us a like, subscribe, and share this episode if you get something out of our discussion here today. The safety of our students is every parent's concern. We've done episodes on specific aspects of safety before, but never an overall look at the full picture. Here to give us the scoop on safety is the Assistant Superintendent of School Safety Operations, Josh Morreale. Josh, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, good to see you again.
So you were here, I believe, talking about what can be said to the public in times of crisis and what cannot be said. First, let's for the viewers, let's go a little bit into your past. Tell us a little bit about Josh Morreale.
So I've been in Cobb County Schools as an employee for 27 years. I started here as a teacher back in the 1990s and moved up to assistant principal and served as an assistant principal, then became a principal at 2 different levels here within the Cobb County school system. Spent a lot of time specifically at high school where I was able to really learn and navigate the operations of running a high school.
And that was, I've known you, I've been here for not quite 20 years, but I've always known you as a principal of Osborne, I believe
yes,
it was,
I
right?
was at Osborne for over 11 years.
Okay, yeah, and that has come a long way since the early, you said in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
1990s. So what is your current role now, specifically as it relates to our police department here in Cobb Schools? A lot of people don't realize that we have our own police department, just like Morreale has theirs and Cobb County has theirs and Ackworth, Austell. We have our own. So tell us a little bit about how you relate to the Cobb Schools Police Department.
Sure. So, again, I am a principal at heart. That is my background. I served as a principal for a long time in this county. I am not a post-certified police officer, so the two are not connected. We are totally different, but we have a strong partnership, a strong relationship. We work together daily, and I am at police headquarters at least once a day, talking with the leadership in headquarters on anything that might be going on that I need to help administrators navigate. So the police, they take the criminal side.
Okay.
School administrators and myself, we take the school policy, and whether it be discipline, communicating with parents, or locking a school down.
Yeah.
We work in that relation to keeping schools safe, where PD, the police department, is working on, they're coming in and they're going to neutralize whatever the threat might be, and we need to be out of their way.
Well, and that brings to mind the fact that there's a line, right, between, a student, say, misbehaving in a class versus a student doing something potentially criminal, right? So
Definitely.
Is that kind of what you're talking about, is helping the school leadership, principal and assistant principals, understand where that line is and also making sure that the police department is available should something come up? Is that kind of the gist of it?
It does. And you know, anytime there's a criminal investigation, the criminal investigation is first. The school administrator investigating and then looking at, was there a policy infraction that might need school discipline, that follows. We cannot impede a police investigation as school administrators. So part of my job is, yes, making sure that the PD is okay and school administrators are not getting ahead of themselves and possibly ruining a police investigation. But at the same time, if we ever had a more serious threat, making sure that administrators, teachers are all trained on what to do in a more serious situation.
Yeah, that's a heavy lift right there because you've got, how many employees do we have?
We have around 19,000 employees.
I was going to guess somewhere around 20,000. Yeah, that's just incredible. What did safety look like when you first came on board?
Yeah, so I've worked for 5 or 6 different superintendents, and every few years we have a change in board members. All of them, through my 27 years in Cobb, had a focus on safety, but it was always a different focus on safety. Recent years, our superintendent, Mr. Ragsdale, has really had to make that a priority for him, and it's his number one priority. He often says is safety of all the students and all the staff in Cobb County schools. 27 years ago, our safety was more around weather, fire drills, and making sure we're prepared to keep students safe in that aspect. Now, the realm of possibilities of what we have to prepare for is a lot greater than it was, let's say, 27 years ago. And our superintendent, our board has made that a priority, that we are prepared for everything, and that's the work I do.
Yeah, I presume you can never guess every potential scenario to defend against, but the ones that you can isolate and figure out, being as prepared as possible for that is key, right?
Yeah, I've always had the mindset of prior planning prevents poor performance. So with that said, constant planning, we could adjust a plan to meet whatever comes at us, and that could be from weather to active student situation that we need to tend to, and do what we need to do to keep kids safe, but also us as school employees do what we need to do to keep our police officers who are responding safe. We do not want to get in the way as they're coming into a building. So we have different strategies that we do to make sure that they're able to respond as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's actually huge because, well, I won't get into the weeds on that, but I could very easily see, for example, if you have, God forbid, a suspect in the hallway armed, and yet you've got a teacher who's walking down a hallway who should have been isolating, suddenly the focus of the police officer changes.
Yes, right? and I never want to put a police officer in that situation.
Right.
But, what school administrators and some of the technologies we do have in a proactive response, making sure that never happens.
Yeah. So. I think looking back, I want to take us back just a little bit about, you mentioned our focus was on weather and, say, fire drills, that sort of thing. Columbine was really kind of a turning point for us and every other school district, right? And that was in the early 2000s, is that right?
Yeah, I don't recall the exact date, but yes, it was early in my career.
So that totally changed the focus.
Yeah, it changed the mindset of leaders of large campuses to, make sure you're doing everything you can do to keep your students and staff safe.
So since those days, what changes, what significant improvements have you seen through those years?
Technology being number one.
Okay.
The changes in technology that we have access to now by far have improved since I started 27 years ago. These technologies didn't even exist then, and now we have a lot of different technologies available to keep all of our staff and students safe. But the other biggie that I've seen over recent years is staff and student awareness. Example, our tip line, vector alert system, we get tips daily. From minor threats to major threats to things seen on social media that definitely help us as school administrators, but definitely our campus police officers investigate any possible threats. Yeah. And luckily, a high percent of time, those threats are non-credible. But, I want our stakeholders, our parents and friends of students and staff to know that every tip is thoroughly investigated. Yeah,
and when you do an investigation, it's twofold, right? It's kind of like a police investigation, like you mentioned, and then I would assume after the police investigation is complete, then an administrative investigation as well, right?
Yes, definitely. And our police department, under the leadership of Ron Story, Chief Story, they have great relationships with their school administrators. Yeah. It's a nice marriage of, hey, this is right now a criminal investigation. We're investigating it, but we want to give you a heads up. This is something that you're going to need to know about here in a little while. And they communicate throughout the process to make sure school administration is aware to do what they need to do in the case of a school threat.
Yeah. So if I can, let me back up just a notch. The reason that you do the criminal investigation first is because that implies that there could be a life safety element involved, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, it could be, but we don't want to impede a criminal investigation that might have to go to court.
Sure, and then you get into bigger issues like evidence tampering and that sort of thing if you're not careful.
Definitely.
Right?
So police own it if it's criminal, and they invite us in when they have completed their part of the investigation.
Okay. Now, what about I remember not long ago we had the I think it was Appalachia High School shooting that took place. And shortly thereafter, it seemed like we received dozens of hoax calls, but we didn't know they were hoaxes at first. How did that all play out?
Every threat, every tip comes in, and we investigate it thoroughly. Our PD, whether it be Sunday at 7 a.m., which we had during that time, a threat come into a school, was investigated through the day. And our PD, when needed, they go right up to the GBI, to the FBI, and involve anyone who needs to be involved to find out what is going on.
Right.
At that point, school administration's also informed, because normally by then students are talking because it is on social media.
Yeah.
Some of the tips that come in are from students who see stuff on social media that doesn't seem right. Yeah. And again, see something, say something. That happens, and our PD is able to do their job and keep everyone safe. But to your point, yes, after a unfortunate situation at Appalachia High School, we did receive numerous threats around our district. None were credible, but every single one was investigated thoroughly and handled thoroughly.
So you investigate it, even if it seems like, oh, this is just like the other one that's not real.
100%.
You can't trust that. You have
Never.
Okay.
Never. We take every tip as if it's a active threat, and until the PD rules that out, we do what we need to do to keep kids and staff safe.
Okay. So one of the things I've heard in probably social media and maybe even the press is that we ought to be doing X, Y, and Z, metal detectors, for example, at every door of every school, and all of these measures that at first blush is like, well, okay, that kind of makes sense, but then you dig into the realities of it, and there's a problem with it. It's almost like you're turning schools into a prison if you go that far with it. How do you determine? How do you draw that line between a positive learning environment and a vigilant endeavor to prevent issues that could threaten the safety of staff or students?
Yeah, without getting into the weeds on that, because our safety plan is only seen by those who are working the safety plan and in the need to know for their part of the safety plan. We do have strategies in place to keep everyone safe throughout a building or buildings on our high school campuses. But there are technologies that you will see. You've talked about Evolve, and we
those are and just for clarification for the audience, those are the two posts that you walk through at a high school football game.
Yeah,
for
at our
example,
stadium,
right?
You'll walk through it. At our arena, you'll walk through it. It's an AI weapon detection system.
Okay.
And a little different than a metal detector.
Ah.
But back to your point, you may see those, but we also have technologies that you won't see.
Okay.
And we have things that you don't see that help keep students and staff safe. And unfortunately, I know everyone wants to know a little bit more about that, but we keep that to those that need to know, our police officers and the monitoring groups that monitor what's going on our campuses.
Yeah, really close to the vest
Yes,
on that. Right?
yes, it has to be. I always use this scenario. If a varsity football coach gives the opposing team his game plan on Monday for the game coming up this Friday, it's real easy to beat that game plan.
Yeah.
So you don't see coaches sharing game plans before the game, and that's done so that they are the only ones that know how they're going to move forward with that game. And we do the same with our school safety plan. Those that need to know what we have, and the police know what they have to do to keep everyone safe.
Okay. So last question for you. And hopefully we've covered some things here that the audience has newly learned. That's the whole point. And by the way, this may be the one exception. We call the podcast the Inside Scoop, but you're not going to get an inside scoop on the on the technologies and such. But what have you seen as probably the biggest factor in maintaining a safe environment for the school district in our schools?
The biggest push that I have is everyone has a place in helping us keep schools safe.
What do you mean by that?
The see something, say something, the letting your school administrators know, using the tip line, letting your police officer at your school know, letting your principal know if you have a concern for safety. Because once that is shared, we definitely look into it and see how we could do better. It's a constant looking at data, looking at our situations that come. How do we get better? I spend every day looking at every situation to see what we can do to keep everyone safe every day and change with whatever changes we need to make to keep people safe.
You are no doubt a very busy man. Folks, as we have been preparing to start the podcast, his phone rang at least 6 times, I would say, over a span of maybe 10 minutes. So all times, day or night, too, right?
And that's testament to the work our principals are doing, our assistant principals, and see something, say something.
Yeah.
And they're notifying me. I notify PD or technology. And it's not always what parents might think of a major event. Might be something very minor, but we get ahead of it. And that line of communication from the schools to district office to PD to technology is critical. And I work real hard to make sure that we don't have a breakdown there and keeping everyone looped in. But to your point, yes, when I was principal, you were real busy at the time students were on your campus. This job is a little different. I get busy in the afternoons, later in the evening when kids are playing around on social media, and that's a big ask from us, is asking parents to be aware of what your kids are doing on their phones, on their technology, on their social media, because that's definitely changed over the years, which gives people a platform to do wrong.
Yeah, and neither you nor I are attorneys, but I would imagine parents might have an interest in the liability their kids are setting up for them. So maybe that's another podcast we can have at some point in the near future.
Definitely.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming in and sharing some of these things. And thank you for not sharing too much.
Well, thank you very much.
So safety obviously is a broad topic, from stopping teen vaping to anti-gang initiatives and active shooter protocols. You can find more details on each major area on the Cobb Shield page of our website. That's cobbk12.org. We'll drop the links in the show notes and description so that you won't have to hunt around for it. And of course, information about the Vector tip line will be there too. Did you hear something you didn't already know? If so, like, subscribe, share this podcast with a friend. Thanks for listening to this edition of The Inside Scoop, a podcast produced by the Cobb County School District.